If you want a clear demonstration of how strength of character and determination really can make a difference in your life, in the community and the world around you, you will love tonight's interview with Doug Robbins. Doug Robbins is a really accomplished man. He has written, directed, and acted in popular local plays. He does theatre reviews. He was president of the community theatre company, Tropical Arts, Inc. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Theatre and English at James Cook Uni, Cairns. He's a licensed marriage celebrant and husband. Now, look, this talent stack alone would be pretty impressive, but Doug has a really severe disability, which has left him in a wheelchair. Part of that is he actually has a breathing issue, which impacts on his speech. Now, the skill stack alone gave me confidence that this interview would be stellar. And then adding the inspirational part of the reality of Doug's unfortunate disability. But this interview quality gets even better. I've wanted to work with Anthony Ring of Ring of Fire Productions for some time, ever since I interviewed him and the wonderful Lisa Bertoldo in their locally made movie, Lindy Lou. Finally, my arm twisting paid off. Ant set this interview up. And he also got Dave Cox, a local expert, to help with the film and sound. Now, you are going to notice a massive leap in production quality with this interview, which is all, I have to say, thanks to them. Now, this interview needs your help, seriously, to get far and wide because it deserves it. It's really, really good. Ant's a fantastic interviewer. There was a little bit of toing and froing between me and him. And I want to see this one get far and wide, but I need you to make that happen. So if you could share, if you could comment, and if you could tell your friends to come on Northern Vibe, subscribe both here and on YouTube, that would be great. But I know you don't want to hear it from me. You want to see how true and how awesome this interview is. Without further ado, here is Ant and Doug.
I'm thrilled. Actually, I'm Matt Maloney, and I'm thrilled to be working with Ant Ring from Ring of Fire Productions and Dave Cox from Channel 6 Productions. For this chat, you're going to notice a gigantic leap forward in production quality. Look, Ant and I are talking to the excellent Doug Robbins. Doug's a bit of a legend. Actor, writer, civil marriage celebrant, got a degree in theatre, co-founder of a writer group, CEO and artistic director of Tropical Arts, inclusive community theatre. He's also a family man, married to the lovely Lauren. The only real millstone around his neck is that he's friends with Ant Ring. But hey, look, everyone's got a fault. But seriously, Ant himself is also an accomplished and successful film director. He's also my friend, I suppose. He's, the millstone thing. And a highly respected teacher. Look, Ant, we have a lot of ground to cover with Doug today because he's such an interesting chap. I'll get you to kick off. Himself is also an accomplished and successful film director.
Awesome to be here. You're looking very sharp, my friend. It's a real privilege, actually. So I'm going to kick off things back in 2007, Matt. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, Dougie and I were in the same cohort, same theatre studies cohort at JCU under the guidance of Michael Beresford. And that's when we first met. I think it was about March 2007. We had quite an interesting group of people it was probably between 15 and 20 throughout the 3 years. But Doug was, like myself, stuck the course out. And Doug, I remember back in 2007, when we were doing our activities with Michael on that, I think, a Thursday morning, I remember pulling you aside saying, "Hey, Doug, what's your plan? What's your vision for your own future here?" At the time, Doug had certain limitations. He was in a wheelchair at the time. And I was intrigued to know how is he going to negotiate his future, given his skill set and given, really what was on the horizon. So, Doug, over to you. 2007, there's my question. What are you going to do? And do you remember your response?
No, I can't remember it, actually.
Well, I won't tell you exactly what he said, but it had a lot to do with being in the pub. But he really was, even back then, really kind of eyeing up the artistic landscape and what he could contribute to it. And me being of always wanting to cultivate curiosity, Matt, I wanted to know more and more and more. Anyway, Doug has demonstrably showed the world what he's been doing since that time. And Doug, can you remember when you graduated from JCU with a theatre degree? Can you remember the first thing that kind of springboarded you into the landscape?
I think that would be I think I was actually in Tropical Arts production of Romeo and Juliet, I believe.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Romeo and Juliet, time frame wise,
2011.
it was 2011. That was, but from that point, you've been frankly, like a pinball, to be honest. Boom here, boom there, and tell us about the journey beyond Romeo and Juliet.
Well, it was 2011. Just had graduated from the Bachelor of Arts with you, and it was an amazing time. Learnt so much. Learnt that I guess limitations aren't everything. I actually remember going. When I first started, there was a lot of unsureness on how I was going to go, and what I'd be able to contribute. And I think that was sort of noticed because we did our third year production, and that's where I started to get people looking at us and saying, hang on, he's got something here. He's not just, being a token disabled person. He was a part of the group and had skills. So from that moment, I sort of was getting looked at for potentially doing some theatre work. So when Romeo and Juliet came along...
Sorry, which one?
When Romeo and Juliet came along in 2011, it was a voluntary acting role, so it was a character named character, so which was the Prince.
Sorry, which one?
The Prince.
The Prince.
Named.
Prince, Prince Ascalius, I think. But it was a role that I guess gave me a chance to show what I could do. And then the next 2 years I returned again and performed in A Midsummer Night's Dream and All's Well That Ends Well. And then in that year it was when I did, I was approached by Jute Theatre Company to have an interview with one of their writers and get them to basically ask me a week of questions. And in that week of questions, what developed out of that was a script called Propelled, which was produced in 2014. So 10 years ago now, and that was a story about my life. So, yeah.
Doug, was that written by Jane Modric?
Yes, it was. I even got some name credits in that, but I think it was because of the story I shared. But I didn't really write any of the theatricalising of it. But I was about me, and I performed it as well.
Do you mind if I... Look, I've spoken to a few actors now, and I know there are many different forms of acting. You have the method actors and all that kind of stuff. My first question would be, what category, if any, do you fit in? And the second one is, I think it's rather it's somewhat of a revelation of character when you discuss what characters you like performing and which ones that you have the most empathy with. So if you could run us through what roles you liked playing the most and what they empathise most with you. Like, by way of example, if you were playing Hannibal Lecter a lot and getting right into character there, that would probably indicate something about your character.
Yeah, I think characters with depth. I think, for one, I've never played a romantic character. So I can't really comment whether I like playing that role. Most of the roles I've been in are, like I was saying, characters with more depth. So not per se villains, but I've got misunderstood characters that through circumstance turn that way, whether it's a better performing sibling or or always thought that they should be a leader of something.
Sure.
And I think that really works with my... usually they're lacking something as well, and I think I can sort of relate to that of, lacking physical movement.
Yes.
So I think I can sort of relate to that more than any other character.
Is there any particular individual character, so that's the genre of character that we've spoken about there, but is there a specific character that you really, really liked, that really rang your bell?
Probably in our in Tropical Arts production, Much Ado About Dragons. I played a character called Don John, who in the movie version of it was played by Keanu Reeves. So I always said I was Keanu.
Well, I'm sure Keanu was saying, in the version in Cairns, Doug Robbins plays my part.
Yeah.
So, Doug, that was Much Ado About Dragons was a twist on Much Ado About Nothing, which is the annual Shakespeare Tropical Arts Shakespeare at the Tanks, which was inaugurated in 2008. And we're now, 2006, 2024. I think, but maybe bar 1 year, Doug? Was it 1 year, COVID year, we didn't have a Tropical Arts?
We didn't have a Shakespeare. We had a show.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Shakespeare. It was it was a sonnets, short Shakespeare. So it was Shakespeare poetry, not a play. Yeah. But that was only a one-night performance, and obviously COVID restrictions. It was I think it was an audience of maybe 100. So it was a small audience, mainly friends and family. But yeah, we endeavour to. That year we put something on for ourselves, not for anyone else. It was just to get our group together and let them know that we're supporting them, and even through disaster or pandemic, we would be there. And I think it is very Elizabethan sort of Shakespearean time, with the Black Plague and things like that. So
100%.
I think it was quite relevant for us to continue on in the face of disease.
Talking of continuing on and darkness, brings me to the poster behind you, which we might do a cutaway of in a minute. So here we are all assembled. Doug, can you tell us about that from its inception? Because I believe it had a different working title, didn't it, from day one?
Yes, it was a more simple name. Doug is Hamlet. It was going to be
Doug is
called.
Hamlet, right? So that was written by Catherine Ash, one of the founding 3 members of Duke Theatre,
Yeah.
alongside Sue Anna Maunder and Susan Prince. 31 years ago, I think it was, maybe 30, 31 years ago, maybe 32.
Yeah.
And so, back over to Doug. You can pick that up now. Doug can run with it.
Yes, it was a play, a post-apocalyptic play, and basically it was about a character called Java that is actually ambiguous in whether he is. He has the same questions as Hamlet, so thinking about life and death, thinking about what's going to come after. So he is joined with a person named Poker, who is almost a protege. That's nearly a pseudo support worker. So her job is to care for me, or my character in a sense, while my character is teaching self-thought and sovereignty, and he's sort of seeing the world change, whereas Poker is a younger, more vibrant, possibly not the sharpest tool in the shed, but is young enough to not be disgruntled by the world and not to know the full dangers of the world, hasn't experienced the hardships that Java has. So it was so that sort of, in a sense, was sort of my a disabled character. So it was really thinking about, in a end of the world, it's quite funny that a disabled person and a simpleton are the ones that survived, rather than a muscle man, or a pretty model. So it's like almost that idea of, who survives in the end, and I think mental toughness comes into that. And
So what was your character's character arc in that, and did that reflect your life at all?
well, it ends in his death, but certainly there was some aspects where having a disability, sometimes you can be quite get quite grumpy, because you're, particularly now, you're surrounded a lot of the day by someone, so a support worker, and you're not really having much time alone. So I guess for me, it was very. Obviously, I'm not dead, so I'm not the same in that respect. But we're all heading that way. There's no, you come to terms with it, and I guess having a severe disability, you come to terms with death quite young, and you're not, I guess, worried about it. You're more worried about the here and now, and you're not worried about the dying aspect, you're worried about the, how can I prolong your life? So I think that part I can really resonate with, where I want to decide when it's end.
Right.
Not to let the environment decide. It's, I can't control much, but it would be great to be able to control that, to fight it as long as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Look, that does segue into a question. Obviously, if you're uncomfortable talking about it or asking anything inappropriate, I do apologise. But clearly, you're in a wheelchair. Would you mind discussing the nature of your disability and
So
how you experience it?
So my disability is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And it's a progressive disorder, so I've had it from birth. Mine was a genetic mutation, so just out of the blue.
Yep.
No history in the family. Two older brothers that weren't affected, so it was just a spontaneous mutation. And basically, it's a progressive disease, so auxiliary muscles like your legs and arms are usually the first things to break down because you don't realise how much you actually use those parts. And since leg and arm muscles are constantly tearing, in my brain I have a certain chemical that repairs the muscle.
Yep.
So after a certain amount of tears, it can't repair itself, so it basically wastes away and turns to fat and connective tissue. So I almost picture it like Wagyu beef,
Yeah.
except I've got more white than red.
Right.
So
So yeah.
did you come up with that analogy yourself?
Um,
The Wagyu beef bit.
no, I think it's I think people can understand it and visualize it
Yeah.
a lot better than just saying, oh, it's white underneath. I think people have an idea of almost like a universal understanding of Western culture, at least, that, or first world culture, would understand that instantly what that looked like. So I think it's a good metaphor.
Sorry, keep going. I interrupted you. I just thought it was a bit of a Dougism as much as I know you. I thought it was a creative explanation. Anyway, back to you. This is really going deep. I knew a little bit about this, but yeah, I'm learning an awful lot. So we're at the stage, Doug. So when your muscle tears, the chemical in your vein up to a point, it will repair it, and then no more. So at that point, the muscle starts to waste away. That's where we're up to at this point.
Yeah, so the chemical is called dystrophin, so that's why it's
Dystrophin.
yeah, so that's why it's
Dystrophin. Right.
Makes sense.
yeah, so it's so as I was saying, your legs and arms
Yeah.
are used a lot. You don't realise how much,
Yeah.
and then slowly your other, your lungs weaken. That's why I've got an air pipe. Your heart weakens, so you go on heart meds to lower your blood pressure, so your heart isn't beating as many times, so you prolong it in that direction. But everyone's different. There's 25-year-old with a pacemaker
Sure.
already, and so it affects different organs and different people at different rates. So I think, I've been quite lucky, I think, in the fact that it's a slow progression.
Well, yeah, but you've. I mean, you're 36 now, Doug. You've achieved. You're married. You're a marriage celebrant. You just keep on hitting goals, kicking goals relentlessly. How much of your life achievements and your goals do you think affect? Because what you're crediting your genetic or your biology for prolonging, but I mean, I'm just wondering how much of it is down to your mental state and continuing to push every single day.
Great question.
Well, I think it's just making the most of it, your time. When you're growing up, so when I was growing up, the life expectancy was 21, 22.
That's what I understood.
So I really want to keep doing as much as I can for as long as I can, because I know it's limited time. So I think that affects your mindset from the outset, knowing that you know, you can't sit and play video games all day. You know, I still do things like that, but I know that it's not a tangible thing that, you know, you're going to get anywhere doing that. Whereas I think where I am at this stage is I've finished acting. Now I'm moving more towards directing and passing knowledge on to people and knowing that, you know, it's very difficult to incorporate air pipe into my acting, just for I'd say nearly a vanity point of view, where for myself, I believe that it diminishes the role.
Oh.
It sort of, you're wanting to entertain people, but to me, I always get the feeling that it's almost drawing them out of the illusion.
Oh, yeah.
It makes them
Makes sense.
come back into it and go, you know, think about their own life experiences of, oh, you know, a disabled person can't, you know, be a villain. They're not that evil. They're not, you know, but you almost want to say, you know, yeah, they can be whatever they want. Just, they just have to go out there and try it. And sure, there's things you regret, but I'm on this path now, so you've got to sort of keep going with it and keep doing what you love. You know, we were talking earlier before the interview, and just talking about, you know, you need to do something you love, and I think, yeah, theatre's where I belong, so that's why I continue doing it, and yeah, I love passing that knowledge on to people.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I just want to give you my impressions, how I'm interpreting and understanding what you're saying, and get you to, you know, comment. And for complete clarity, I'm not seeking validation here. It's like, if I've got this all wrong, I really need and want you to correct me on this. So the messages I'm getting are carpe diem, seize the day. One of the benefits that you've got from your unique perspective is that, you know, don't waste time. Time is really, really, really valuable. But the second message that I'm getting, and again, really correct me on this if it's not correct, is the suffering that you're going through, and it is quite clearly, you know, there's a high degree of suffering going on there, hasn't made you bitter, hasn't made you, although there's, I would suspect, well, it's kind of like there's a degree of resentment there, you know, you're talking about that character there before, but it's how, like, you don't need to channel the resentment into something negative, into being the cliched villain. It's something that can make you can pass on an understanding that you don't need to be cynical, which is my understanding of, you know, from very briefly what you said about this character that you were mentoring before. Have I kind of got that correct?
Yeah, I think I am quite critical. I think of things, like if I see something, I'll be critical about it. So I wouldn't say I'm, you know, as I get older, I think there is more because I'm losing more.
Yeah.
I'm losing more movement. I'm struggling to drive my wheelchair. But I think if you worry about all the little things, then you don't worry about the bigger things.
Yeah.
So I'm quite, you know, things that I can change, I want to do it as perfect as I can.
Mm.
Whereas large things that I've got no control over,
Yeah.
like my progression,
Yep.
I just don't sweat that stuff.
Okay.
So it's I find that if I waste my energy worrying about small things,
Yeah.
then you're worrying about those small things, that the big picture, losing function, losing ability,
Sure.
you don't have time to think about. So that's why I want to do lots, because
Yeah. Makes sense.
you know, an idle mind is no good for anyone, and you get, you feel isolated even if you've got a supportive family, a supportive friends.
Sure.
You can still feel isolated. So it's so I just don't
Yeah.
think about the main things, but
Well, I mean, that's been an incredible development of character, and that insight has come through your suffering. I mean, that's a huge price to pay. But I'm going to ask a direct question: was it worth it?
I sort of have those days where I now am more thinking of, you don't go into arts to get paid.
Yeah.
It's not going to, it's
Yeah.
a very small amount of people become successful
Sure.
or become, in movies. So I think, I believe, so I have days where I think that maybe I should have done something that you can actually get paid for consistently.
Yeah.
But then people around me sort of say that, it would have been a waste. We've got enough IT people, we've got enough accountants, we've got enough lawyers, we've got enough teachers, sorry, that, it was I was not made for it, but
Yeah. It's your thing.
found the calling, yeah.
Well, Ant can talk about your, like we discussed a couple of your roles. Mate, if it's okay with you, would you mind digging deeper into, some more of the roles that he's kind of like?
Yeah, few spring to mind. First of all, when we were at uni in 2008, we did a production at Duke Theatre. Initially, it was under the direction of Sue Ellen Maunder, but then our friend and now, I mean, she's doing fantastic things. She's a far north Queensland resident, Karen Jackson. I hope.
Hey, Jacko.
Are you going to get the opportunity, or have you done the?
Oh yeah, I've spoken to Jacko. Yeah.
Jacko, she's kicking goals all over the place. So she actually took on the role of director. Now we did a Neil LaBute play called The Distance from Here. Neil LaBute is a kind of he's almost like the Eminem of the playwriting world. And what I mean by that is he critiques Middle America. He critiques the hypocrisy. He critiques the absurdity of banality with a twist, if you will. So I played the character, the character with an American accent, I might add, and so did Dougie. So Dougie's character, you mentioned earlier on, the villain, but he wasn't an outright villain. He was ambiguous, but you kind of really got this undercurrent of malevolence with Dougie's character. I remember asking Doug a question, and do you remember I'm going to have to say it. Do you remember the "fuck no" line? Do you remember that? And I asked you about the context, and that was his response: "Fuck no." It was something that. What do you think about this? And are we going to get exposed or something along those lines? And that was Dougie's response: "Fuck no." But interestingly enough, I'm just going to divert slightly. Doug's condition at that time had an enormous impact on him, but he kept it so under wraps. I, as his colleague, was having a bit of a prima donna moment, actually, because I didn't really understand, because Doug has always, his battle is his battle, and you won't necessarily know what he's going through. I sensed frustration my end because Doug wasn't ready for rehearsal. And what Doug was doing, I had no idea. Doug was being taken home so that he could get taken care of, because that's what he needed to happen.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was tardiness. Doug, that's what I thought at the time. Can you imagine how I felt after that? And it wasn't until way later that I found out, actually, it was during Propelled, we'll do a cutaway of this. It was during Propelled that I actually started to understand, because there's a timeline to Doug and his character's degeneration. And Doug, I don't know if you remember when you were doing that show, do you remember the audience being utterly silent? Did you see many people's mouths open during that show? What they're experiencing through your life? It was really humbling as an audience member to know somebody, and by this point I'd known you for 8, 9 years,
Yeah.
2007, it's about 7 years. Knowing him, I'd performed with him, yada yada yada. Yet I didn't know what his cross to bear, his trials and tribulations of Doug's life were not the same as mine. And to learn that was really, really humbling. And I know that everybody else came out very, very, very quiet on the back of that. It was this kind of,
Totally.
what have we just watched? Goodness me, this is our, this is one of our people, and that's his story. Oh my God, this is really, it took a while to deal with that. So there's a few things there, but it's almost a bit of a confession from me, learning the hard way what Doug actually had to deal with, even back in 2008. Right, that was that. So that covers Propelled as well. That was a magnificent show. It was beautiful in so many ways. Doug's story, as painful as it is, it was told with Jane's magic, I would say. Doug is laid it on the line, really laid it out, and it felt like it pulled no punches. I'll come back to your other role in just a moment, Doug. Do you think that's fair? I mean, we came away with a pretty good understanding of you, of that show.
Yeah, I think so, and literally and metaphorically, yes. It was one particular piece in it was this idea of a centaur being the disabled of the fantasy world. And that sort of, Jane sort of worked that into the play through this omnipotent sort of Sagittarius spirit, if you would, that is also almost the parallel of a person where they're not quite a horse, not quite a human. There's some in between, and they're never, like Ant was saying, it's never looked at like, how do they go to the toilet? How do they interact with the other characters? Can they go to the pub? Do they have to sleep in the stable? So it's almost that, those unasked questions where Propelled gave you that insight. You didn't need to be a rude bastard and ask, oh, there to use the toilet, it's...
There's always
you
that...
basically have a bit more understanding of, I guess it explains to me without asking the question. But gives them a safe space to, and that's art, it's a safe place to explore the unknown and human condition. So it's a great leveler. So I think that's why it worked. And even today I'm using it to train support workers, just so they get an understanding of, I'm not just this, quite pedantic, grumpy client. I'm more of, there's more to me, there's a deep side, there's a romantic side, there's a child side. And it's a really useful tool now because we got to record the show. And it's a rarity in theatre. It's becoming more and more, but to actually have a visual copy of a show is wonderful. It gives it a life. It gives it a longevity, whereas typically it's comes and goes. If you missed it, you missed it. Yes, someone else might direct the same play, but it's always going to be a different version. Every time you see it, it's going to be a different take on it. It'll be the same words, but it'll be different. So I think, it's really valuable to see it. And it's a way to expand it and show to more people.
And very much a product of our time too, because if you think first, there's always going to be a degree of curiosity curiosity about marginality, in whatever form or shape it kind of takes. But the other thing is, like, if you think of our times, we are obsessed, and I don't use that word lightly, Doug. We're obsessed with identity. But as you've kind of like pointed out, like, okay, like these individual fractal parts of any human being's identity are going to have an effect on them, but they're not definitive. Like, it's not who one individual, I suppose what I'd be trying to say is, like, one individual trait or characteristic would not be definitive of who you are or what you are as a human being.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say that part of the condition of our society is exactly that.
Yeah, totally.
That some people are taking that
100%.
ghetto butt, that pout, that whatever, and that is their identity, and therefore that becomes the focus for them. And really, we lose all of the, in my view, many cases, we lose the interesting stuff that makes them a three-dimensional person. And much of this is social media informed. I feel like I've got somewhat of a license to say this because I do work as a school teacher, where in the last 15 years there's been a massive paradigm shift with the popularization of social media, and it's got a lot to answer for. So I've just said I've made my social comment, Matt, by conversely to yourself, but I absolutely, absolutely agree. And I also just point out that you blink an awful lot sometimes when you're nervous, and I just want to say how attractive you look when you blink.
Oh, thanks,
like
old boy. Thanks. But
now you're blushing.
I suppose the joke that we made off screen was that at least Doug has a good side, and we got that getting in there. But there's no hope with me.
He also has a malevolent side.
Oh, yes.
So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
The last role that I'd like to comment on, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, Doug has achieved something in his life, many things that I've not. I'm certainly not a marriage celebrant. But he's a husband, and he's been a husband for, is it 2016, Doug?
No, 19.
Oh my gosh, 19.
2019, yeah.
Was it really? 2019, you got married?
Yeah,
Well, I feel corrected.
it's on the
Anyway,
wall over there.
5 years. So I haven't even been married, and there's a very good reason for that. Not because I'm on the other bus as such, not yet anyway. I think those that know me know. Anyway, over to you, Matt.
Oh, right, yeah. No. Okay, well, tell us how you and Lauren met. Like, you got to run us through that story. Everyone loves a good love story.
Oh, technology. So we're talking about technology. We met on Plenty of Fish.
Oh,
Nice.
right.
Yeah, and to begin with, she didn't think I was real. So we used to have this joke where that I was doing a production at the time. We were doing Taming of the Shrew
Oh, yeah,
in
right.
2016, and we just had.
You're meeting a
I
chick
started
with a straight
writing to her, and when we were doing the production,
Yeah.
I was still living at home at this point with my parents. But during the production, they went away, so I needed to stay in a respite house. So where lots of disabled people stay, and when their families who used to be their main support workers, would need a break. So we would go into this house. So she was wanting to meet, but I told her I couldn't because I didn't want to say it, but it's probably not the best place to.
No.
To me, a future love interest,
No.
a house that you don't know. The craziness that are in these places, that that it'd be
Yeah.
it would be never a second meeting.
Sure.
So I just said no, I can't for 2 weeks.
Sorry, Doug, got interrupted. So at this point, Lauren, by the way, and she's 40 today, bless her.
Yeah.
Um,
Happy birthday.
Doug, as you've just worked out, Doug's her toy boy. Doug said, Doug, you're the toy boy.
Ollie
Oh,
misses
3.5 years, but
So was Lauren aware of the disability landscape in any way, shape, or form at this point?
yeah, she used to volunteer at Sailability,
Right.
but they were paraplegics, so she had this idea of that wheelchair, but your arms work fine. So I actually thought I was quite secretive and hid in my photos that I was in a wheelchair. But she said she knew all along, so I thought I was being very sneaky, but
There's no fooling women, mate.
yeah, it turned out I wasn't. But she still didn't comprehend that weakness side. She thought, oh yeah, I know people in wheelchairs, but they've got upper body strength. They're plateaued in their ability, so
Sure.
they're not going to get weaker for no reason.
Yeah.
So she didn't fully understand. So I guess we would joke about it, and I would say that the reason I couldn't meet her was I was actually Jamaican. And so when I'd ring her, I would say, tell her what the time was in Kingston.
You porcupine.
And put on a
Can you patois?
Jamaican sort
Yeah,
of...
bomba clot Ross, man.
Yeah,
Give me some back, brethren. So I went to school in Southeast London with West Indians. So I'm really interested to hear what time it is for you, Dougie. In Kingston,
yeah,
man.
it's exactly like that. Rasta like. And I remember, and then all of a sudden it went quite quickly. Like I was saying, we'd met for 2 weeks, and I was saying, she told me her parents were going away for 6 months, travelling around Australia. So I said, okay, well, so they know you're not with a serial killer, I better meet them. And then they thought that was quite a red flag. Who is this stranger wants to meet us? Is he trying to
Yeah.
fleece us for money or
Yeah.
or whatnot? Because I guess they didn't, understand what it was like. But then as soon as they met me, they were like, oh, okay, that's fine. There was no worries, but it was very strange that, it probably would have been strange that someone your daughter's met on the internet was to meet you
Yeah.
within 2 months of
Yeah.
knowing them.
Well, seize the day, bro. I mean, we talked about that before, but where did you go for your first date? Like, how?
Well, it was actually at a play, actually.
Ah.
But yeah, it's probably not first date material play. It was a play about domestic violence.
Oh my
and
God.
It was the play about what?
Domestic violence.
Oh, the
and rape and
removalists.
No, it wouldn't have been that
No,
way.
it was Tequila Mockingbird
Oh,
by Shake and Stir.
Yeah, well, it
And,
could have been worse. You could have taken her to Taming of the Shrew, like hint, hint.
no, it was just a last minute thing. So she was actually house sitting a boat
Yeah.
in the inlet.
Oh, cool.
And I rang her that day, but the only problem was that she wasn't going back to the boat till the night, and the tide was coming in. So there was no chance for her to go back to the boat to get her nicer clothes. So
Nicer
she
clothes.
looked in the back of her car and found an old shirt and a best-looking old shirt and pair of pants, and then we went to the theatre, and I was late, of course, so she was like, bloody hell, I'm late, I need some Dutch curry. She just went down and drank. And then, so yeah, that was the first time. So we had like 5 minutes to talk before we went into the performance. So
Awesome.
then you got this domestic violence play, and then, you're thinking, oh, what's,
Once we were warriors.
yeah, I was like,
Warriors,
yeah, probably shouldn't have taken her to it, but
Could
Yeah, we just went and had a walk on the Esplanade. But from that night, I think we met every night for 2 weeks. Just kept went out, went and drank in along the Esplanade in paper bags, and
Cool.
every night just went out to get to know each other, and then it went from not wanting to meet to meeting every night,
Yeah.
and then so it was just quite amazing, and it just things went from there, and we moved in together, and then got married in 2019, and
When did you know?
well, it was funny. I think I said I loved her like 3 weeks in.
You knew. Man, that's quick.
But after that sort of slowed down, and then she doesn't like rings or flowers, so it was she's very
It's got a cut cost.
not expensive woman, so it saved me a few dollars. So when I proposed, I gave her a ring pop, a lovely ring pop, and mind you, I went through like 10 to find an orange one. Okay, it's quite romantic that bit, but I didn't know my support worker who went and bought it with me had left a receipt on the kitchen bench.
Oh, man, really? Drive a man to drink.
But I didn't know this, so it's just like, oh, what's this receipt for? Oh, nothing. But and then so then we went to a sunflower field and proposed to her at that.
Oh, man, you romantic. Are you taking notes? Are you writing this down? Yeah, you should be, bro. You should. But, and married celebrant. So how many jobs you done?
I've only done about 7, but what got me into it was my brother's wedding.
That's right. I remember. Yeah.
He got engaged, and then I said, for shits and gigs, I sort of said to him, I sort of started doing it, the course, and I said, oh, wouldn't it be funny to marry your own brother? But it sounds weird when you say it that way, when you say, oh, you're marrying your own brother. Yeah.
Well, you're not marrying your own brother. It's not in the sense of
disappointed.
No, I know. Look, I
Yeah,
understand.
so that's why I started doing that, and then I just do acquaintances, friends, and it's not about making money.
No.
I think half of them I've done for free. Half of them I've just only charged for the certificate costs.
Sure.
And they had to send it in. So it was, I think the biggest one was travel to Daintree to do one.
All right. No, fair enough.
I think all I charged was a night accommodation,
Oh, yeah. That's right.
and a bit of petrol, that was it. So I do it for the, it's going to sound corny, for love, but
You got any funny stories
they're
from them?
very, I can say that none of them have been divorced, so
Mate,
I'm
that's
Win.
fantastic.
Win.
perfect, great.
Fantastic result.
So obviously they're doing it for the right reasons, I think. So I've got no concrete evidence that this is true on a couple, but I haven't heard on the contrary, so it must be.
Yeah, nice. So that's like a 6 or 7, 100%. Man, that's a pretty good.
7 from 7, bro.
Doug, I've got an overarching question. When Matt talked about Seize the Day earlier, and funnily enough, Lisa called me a Seize the Day director, Carpe Diem director.
Carpe diem.
Try and, when I get the day right, that is, to bring everyone on set. Moving on. Doug, have you got a motto, a philosophy, a saying, anything that encapsulates your philosophy of or experience in life that is not seize the day or cut the end?
It's a tricky one. I think just maybe don't know. Maybe don't sweat the big stuff. I don't know.
Don't sweat the big stuff, the
Don't
stuff
sweat
you
the big
can't
stuff.
control. That's nice. I like it. I like it. What do you think, Matt?
I love it, bro.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever said that
There's a
before.
whole
But anyway,
card right there.
you can do something about that.
that was 100% unique for this convo. So.
There you go. Don't sweat the big stuff.
Little C, C, little C in with a little circle. Copyright Doug.
So look, any other kind of thoughts? Because I think we're probably getting on for our quote.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Look, can I ask a deeper meaningful just before we go? And I'm sorry to go from light to heavy, but hey, it's Northern Vibe. That's the way we roll. So, look, I'll give a quick contextual understanding to this because I've spoken to quite a few people who've been suffering from terrible diseases, palliative care people, all that kind of stuff. And one of the common themes that I've noticed is that's been specifically articulated this way is that the best way to transcend suffering is to embrace it.
Wow. Wow.
What do you think about that?
Statement. Goodness me.
Yeah, we've got a saying we jokingly say in my family is pull the cripple cards.
Come again?
Pull the cripple card.
Pull the cripple card.
I'll pull the cripple card.
Pull the cripple card.
So yes, I'd say there's definitely things that you can, benefits, I guess you would say, but not like not really monetary things like you can't. But there is certain things like, you can park closer to things, and
Makes it worthwhile.
so it's not really. But that can work for anything, that it can get you out of some things as well.
But you are suffering. Like, I mean, how do you get through that? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, don't think about it.
Just don't think about it.
Just get on with it. Yeah.
Push through. Hey, there's your Hallmark card.
Right there.
Push through.
All right. One last question for Dave. So, in a moment of inspiration, Matt Maloney came up with what I think is a really terrific log line for Northern Vibe. Cultivating curiosity, which I think encapsulates things really, really nicely. Doug, any thoughts on that as a log line or a slogan? And what do you think of that? And do you have anything that you could throw in there?
Well, he is a writer.
He's a writer, exactly.
He's a writer.
He's got chops.
It's his thing.
What do you reckon?
Oh yeah, it's quite deep. You've got deeper levels by the sound of it. Of saying it is like a plant where it's like a human. It's got a life cycle. We're constantly growing until someone cuts us down a peg. It's our growth can be depending on our environment. Who you surround yourself with, who you. So yeah, I think that's a good metaphor for people and for what you aim Northern Vibe to do, which is, gently cultivate things and, you're building up all these interviews and you're learning and you're growing, and I think your audience is growing with you. So, it probably is a nice little, tagline for your.
What, seal of approval from the super writer? Got to be happy with that one.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
All right. Hey, look, thank you. Seriously, thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time, because got a little bit of time to set up, and we're here at Chateau de Robins. Your time is not being taken for granted, and you've been so welcoming into your house. And India, has been helping us over there. She's off screen. Absolutely wonderful lady who's been assisting too. So thanks very much, Indy. But big thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Really good to see you. Great. I'm really happy that I could spend this time.
One of the kind of dilemmas with that was how to sell it. I mean, so I was kind of like thinking, should I focus on the fact that, Doug has MD but it's kind of, as we discussed about midway through, it's really not definitive. Although it does give him, as he articulated towards the end, it gives him a unique perspective. There are things that he has to do because of these limitations that he has. So, what didn't we cover off on there? I mean, death, suffering, life, authenticity. What's it like to have a serious disease? I loved that interview. If you're still with us, thank you so much. I hope you did too. Make sure you get this one out, because if anyone's perspective needs to be out there, it's Doug Robbins. Thank you all. God bless you. I'll see you next